Okay, thank you. Welcome everyone to the Easthampton Mayoral Candidate Forum and the At-Large City Council Candidate Forum that will follow this forum at 8 p.m. The forums are sponsored by Easthampton Media, Easthampton Climate Action, and the Easthampton Democratic City Committee. In addition to this webinar, this forum is being live streamed on cable channel 193 on Easthampton Media's YouTube channel and on Facebook. You will also be able to watch a recording of the forum on the Easthampton Media YouTube channel. I'm Stephen Linsky, and I'm joined tonight by fellow Easthampton Democratic City Committee members Paige Dolinsky and Evan LeBeau. We want to thank the other co-sponsors who are joining us this evening: Jen Ramsey from Easthampton Media, without whom none of this would be possible. Thank you so much, Jen. And Connie Dawson from Easthampton Climate Action. Connie will now describe tonight's program.
Thank you, Steve. In 2020, 74% of Easthampton voters supported a ballot initiative that required Massachusetts to achieve 100% renewable energy use within the next 2 decades. This March, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts adopted aggressive plans to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, passing the Next Generation Climate Bill. And this September, the Easthampton City Council passed a resolution declaring that a climate emergency threatens our city and humanity. It states that a mobilization to meet the challenge is both a moral imperative and an unprecedented opportunity to stabilize the climate, remedy environmental harms, create clean energy jobs, and improve human lives. It calls on the city government to reach net zero emissions, to protect natural habitat and open space, minimize the waste stream, and move away from fossil fuels and the impact of diet and food choices on the climate. We are presenting this forum to inform the public about the candidates' views on a broad range of issues, particularly those affecting the environment. We take no positions in support of or in opposition to any of the candidates. If you are attending this webinar, if you're attending as a webinar, you may ask questions of the candidates through the chat feature. The chat will be monitored throughout the sessions, and a representative sample will be presented at the end of each forum, as time allows. If you're having any technical difficulty, you can also use the chat to ask for help. Our questions were prepared in advance and shared with the candidates ahead of time. We ask candidates to limit their comments to the questions asked, and to be respectful of the hosts and of each other. Candidates will have 2 minutes to answer each question. Our timekeeper, Evan LeBeau, will give a 30-second visual warning, and at the 2-minute mark, will inform speakers that their time is up. Speakers will be allowed to complete their thought, but their microphones will be cut off after an additional 15 seconds. Responses to audience questions will be limited to 1 minute. And now, I'm happy to welcome our moderator, Ben Weil, UMass Extension Assistant Professor of Building Energy. Dr. Weil does applied research and teaching in building science and energy systems, is associated with the UMass Clean Energy Center, and leads the UMass Clean Energy Corps. He provides outreach consulting services to municipalities, nonprofits, and institutions, primarily towards transitioning buildings to run on 100% renewable energy. Dr. Weil has published extensively on a wide range of topics related to environmental issues. And now, Ben, it's all yours.
Hi, thank you very much, Connie, and welcome candidates. Very pleased to welcome Eric Berzins, Nicola Chappelle, and Donald Tory. And first, I want to ask you to make an introductory statement. So this is your opportunity to share with the voters what you would like them to know about you and about your candidacy, and if it's possible, to reflect on your relationship to the issue of climate. And so I would ask Eric Berzins to go first.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me. I guess the 3 issues that I'd like to address at my during my candidacy are running a balanced budget. Number 2, making sure that the school is working for us. And number three, making sure that the roads are in proper accommodation. If I'm getting a little distracted here, but I'm gonna hold my time until I'm gonna hold my time to the next question.
That's fine. There's no requirement that you use the full 2 minutes. Nicola Chappelle, it's your turn.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Easthampton Media, the Easthampton Democratic City Committee, as well as Climate Action Now and Dr. Wheel for putting this together as a joint venture. It's been an absolute privilege to be Easthampton's mayor since 2018 when I was sworn in and then reelected in 2019. I'm asking for your vote on November 2nd to go back to that office and finish all the great work that we've started and also push ahead on vital issues that affect our climate, the effects that we're seeing now. Easthampton remains stable in the face of incredible challenges, an ongoing racial reckoning, and a global pandemic. We did this through smart fiscal planning, laser focused on the folks who live, play, and work here. What did we actually do together? Government, local government in particular, has to be supportive, accessible, and transparent. We launched a new city website, a text notification service, and added government services online. Knowing our local economy sustains us, we partnered with the Greater Easthampton and the Massachusetts LGBT Chambers of Commerce. And together, we launched Blueprint Easthampton to support local small and micro businesses. We're planning together, and we're seeing things come to fruition. I look forward to talking about those things coming in the coming hour and a half, as well as where climate sits in all of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Donald, Tory, your introductory comments.
Hi, my name's Donald Tory. This is my first time on Zoom, so bear with me. I'm running for mayor as a write-in candidate. I would like to thank the Democrat City Committee, Easthampton Climate Action, and Easthampton Media for sponsoring and hosting this event. I'm a lifelong resident of Easthampton. In my youth, I worked on farms. When I was older, I worked in the factories. I was at United Elastic until they closed and moved south. After that, I worked as an assistant manager for WT Grants, and they closed also. And I worked on construction after that. In 1974, I went to work for the school department as a custodian. I actually took a pay cut from unemployment to take the job, but jobs were hard to find back then. 1980, I started Yankee Services, a contract cleaning company, and I've ran that for 40 years until I was forced to retire last year when I was in a fluke car accident, and I can no longer work at my profession. I'm hoping to bring some common sense back to the city and some fiscal responsibility. I've seen a lot of things that just aren't common sense, and I'll elaborate on those later on the questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the brevity and interesting personal history as well. So the first kind of substantive question is about climate is what specific vulnerabilities to climate change do you see facing Easthampton, and what steps will you take to address them? And Nicola Chappelle, you can take this first.
Thank you. The vulnerabilities that I see first and foremost are water and our sewer and wastewater treatment. With more and more rain hitting the city, our sewer and wastewater plants are overwhelmed. Our wastewater plant was last updated in 1967, the year I was born. addressing those, we need to start looking at creative ways like the municipal vulnerability grant for $2 million that we were just awarded over on Cherry Street that combines a lot of the issues I just spoke on into one grant, and preserving and protecting conservation area with a lot of water and wetlands that goes into Manhan, the Manhan River, and right by our wastewater treatment plant.
That's great, succinct question. Since there's some time, I may come back for a follow-up to any one of you. But Donald Tory, again, what vulnerabilities to climate change do you see for Easthampton, and what steps will you take to address them?
Well, the biggest vulnerability is buying things from China. China is a terrible polluter. They have 1,082 coal-fired power plants, and they're adding 43 more to produce enough electricity to produce products for us to buy, including solar panels. Now, I know we're putting solar panels on different buildings with the Honeywell project, and I was just wondering if they were purchased in the United States, because we do sell solar panels in the United States. We'd see counterproductive to buy something from China that's polluting more than anybody else in the world. I think since 1990, they've increased the amount of carbon by 200%. So that's one of the things that I see as an issue. The new school, I would have thought we would have gone with geothermal and solar panels on the top of it. Not that I'm in favor of solar panels on top of roofs, because roofs have to be removed if you're going to replace, the solar panels have to be removed if you're going to replace the roof. I believe the City Hall and Safety Complex have older roofs, and they're going to have to be removed and replaced. And I don't believe that was in the Honeywell project to pay for that. The Honeywell project is going to have a net loss of $192,000 a year. And even in the report, it said that the solar canopy behind the safety complex was financially not necessary. I think the infrastructure for those panels is more expensive than they're going to produce electricity for. So I wasn't in favor of that. It's too late now. I guess we have to live with it. I was more in favor of, we have 13 acres off of Park Street, and I was more in favor of putting a solar field there than on roofs. And like I said, the new school, why weren't we a geothermal?
Thank you. Your time is up.
Thank you, Evan. So Eric Berzins, again, 2 minutes to specific vulnerabilities to climate change that you see facing Easthampton and steps you would take to address them.
I'm on. My biggest issue is complacency. I think that as we see throughout our government, both local, state, and federal, just the general disconnect with, let's take it another way. I've got a problem with lobbying, okay? A lot of politicians accept money, and when you accept money, you owe people favors, okay? And unfortunately, I've spoken to Donald, and I've got no problem with how he portrays business. But when I see that Nicole has raised $44,000 and spent $78,000, I tend to question. No one gives money away for free. Unfortunately, it just doesn't happen.
So Mr. Berzins, could I get you to focus on the question? So at least make this tie directly to the specific vulnerabilities to climate change that the city of
Easthampton. So there's been a sort of a rough article about me in the most previous Gazette. And actually, when I met Nicole on the bike path, I was bringing concerns about, about the environment to her. And I was also bringing concerns about taxation. And unfortunately, if you look at how government is actually run, okay, you'll see that there's a very close relationship between the building inspector and the assessor's office. Okay. And so when things aren't going proper, when we've had 5 building inspectors, you have to fully understand, all right, during the past 4 years, we've had a multitude of changes in the assessor's office.
Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you.
Do I have another 30 seconds to finish my thought? Or is
No,
that
sorry, that was for the 30 seconds.
All right, thank you. I'll continue it.
Okay, thanks very much. So
Answer the question.
the next question, and I would like to point out that these are specific questions about climate change and associated issues, and that is the focus of this forum. So I'm hoping we can focus on those issues. So what actions will you take to address the city's economic and racial disparities and physical accessibility issues through your work as mayor? First going to go to Donald Tory.
Well, that's one of the main reasons that I decided to run for mayor. Currently, the city increased the tax exemption for seniors, and they lowered the age from 70 to 65. Well, the income maximum is $21,167, and the total assets are $43,000. This is ridiculous. I mean, $21,000, you're going to own a house. So 55 people qualified for this. The total with the $300 increase comes to $16,800 they generously gave. Now we go to the COVID emergency rental program for renters. It costs $60,000 to administer a program that initially gave out $5,600. Now that's totally ridiculous. So they reduced all the qualifications. You didn't have to be behind on your rent or anything. And they ended up giving $56,000 at the last time I checked. So you're giving out $56,000, but you're paying $60,000 to administer this program. That's ridiculous. And I believe Mayor LaChapelle said she wants to continue it. And that to me is, I don't understand that at all. The other thing was on accessibility for the handicap. I was in a wheelchair for 3 months last year after an accident, and the streets and sidewalks are horrendous. If I was elected, the first thing I'd do is look at areas that the handicap use and improve the sidewalks, at least where they're at. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So the same question to Eric Berzins. What actions will you take to address the city's economic and racial disparities and physical accessibility issues through your work as mayor? And you're still muted.
All right. First of all, I'm going to make sure that everyone is taxed appropriately. You have to understand that there is a certain amount of cronyism in Easthampton. Whether you like it or not, all right, let's take a step back. The average person is not going to not retaliate, but ask questions about why their tax bill is increased. Okay, but you have to understand that but even before, I'm not blaming Nicole, okay, but before she even came into power, okay, there have been certain issues that haven't been addressed that when I brought to her, okay, still haven't been addressed. And you have to understand that the average person
focus on the question.
No, I'm focusing on it. You have to understand that this debate is not only on this debate. This debate is, I have undergone a huge amount of scrutiny on political media to the point where like I've almost said, you know what, why even bother with it? Because things get out of hand. And you have to understand there's a disconnect between the assessor's office, the building inspector, okay, and that is causing our taxpayer a tremendous amount of money. Okay, we've had 5 building inspectors in the past 4 months. We've had changes in the assessor's office. Okay, there is disconnect. There is more concern about how we're going to spend the money than how we're going to collect the money. Okay, and I apologize that I don't have all the answers on how we're going to spend the money. Okay, but I know truthfully between my 30,000 documents in Easthampton on that there are problems on collecting the money. Okay, and
Thank you. Your time is up.
Why I'm here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Nicola Chappelle, I'm going to bring the same question to you, but your name was brought up a number of times, so I want to open it up to you to also address anything that was brought up, if you want to. But again, the question was actions you would take to address the city's economic and racial disparities and physical accessibility issues.
Yes, I appreciate the organizations that put this forum together. It's not a debate, and the time that went into the questions. So I'm going to answer the questions that was given and follow the structure of this forum as I expected it to be. Looking at the city's economic, racial disparities and the physical accessibility issues are very complicated and intertwined. We're a city that has a long history of deferred maintenance, and we've started to make those improvements. Before I even took office, you see them on Cottage Street. Mutters Field is ADA accessible park, the rail trail. However, when we look at our main corridors, Cottage, Union, Main Street, Pleasant Street, we have a lot of work to do. The difference between Pleasant Street in front of the mills and Union Street is huge. We are putting together with Mass DOT a very drawn out project with all of the regulations on Union Street to make it 100% ADA accessible, and as well as make room for bikes on the street. Very exciting project, but one of many streets we really need to take a look at. I'm really excited about the Commission on Disability has offered to take a look at our website as well as work through our housing needs and production plan to make concrete suggestions that are based on what Easthampton residents want to see and they need.
Thank you very much. So the next question, we'll go to Eric Berzins first. So Eric, I'm gonna read the question with care. How will you balance net zero energy goals with the city's other budget priorities and how you pay for them? And you're muted, I think. Oh, there you go.
All right, I'm unmuted. Well, I mean, truthfully, we're going to do the most important thing. Unfortunately, the media is telling me to answer one question or another, but the reason I am here, okay, is because I have found discrepancies in how the taxes are collected, okay?
But that's not the question here. This is about
I understand
net zero energy goals and other budget priorities. That's the question. How do you balance those?
But I mean, you have to understand, but I've been slandered on the internet. Like there's a whole population.
But this is not the forum. This is not the forum in which we're discussing that. This is about climate.
But this is one opportunity for me to discuss this, and I find it tough because you have to understand, the last time the media contacted me, they were like, are you harassing Nicola Chappelle?
To be
And
clear, we're
no.
not the media. This is a bunch of
No, but it is
citizen
the media.
organizations.
It is the media. And it is, I mean, like, because you have to understand, all right, the guy asked me, like,
All right, I think I'm going to go on to, again, with this question, that's what our organization is asking to Donald Tory, and understand how you would balance net zero energy goals of the city with the other budget priorities.
Is this question 3 that I received, or?
This is question 4. How will you balance net zero energy goals with the city's other budget priorities, and how will you pay for them?
Okay, number one, I'm a big fan of geothermal. I've got mini splits at my house, which ended up, I don't burn any oil. I went 4 years without burning a drop of oil because I was using mini splits. And I think they're excellent. I think the city should be looking more at geothermal. Of course, our new school, they didn't go with it. It's a shame that when we had the opportunity, we did not do that. We also didn't do the solar on top. It seems like it's a little late to start these projects now that the building is all done. So to achieve net zero, I would be more in favor of having geothermal. I looked at it at my house, and it's 5 to 8 year payback versus just putting another gas furnace or oil furnace in, which will never pay back. There's a break-even point with geothermal. Another option, I know everybody hates this, is nuclear. Not in Hampton, maybe, but nuclear power is great for France. So I don't know if you laugh at France when I make statements like that, but I'm not opposed to that. As far as Easthampton goes, again, don't buy from China. That's our first step. We can cut pollution just by not buying from China and buying solar cells made in the United States. Thank you.
Okay, fair enough. And finally, Nicola Chappelle, again, balancing net zero energy goals with the city's other budget priorities, and how do you pay for them?
I think there are net zero strategies that can be embedded in each department. One would be the police department, where we've started purchasing only hybrid vehicles, and we've put in a grant to switch to all electric vehicles. What you see in Easthampton, in the City Hall, upgrading HVAC systems and filters that haven't been touched for years and years, and making a mix with improving the quality of air with adding some solar to balance out that cost. We're always looking for new ways to put that in net zero strategies into how we handle our water and our wastewater, looking at minimizing the number of pump stations. We'll have to, as a city, go maybe a little slower than cities around us because we have the deferred maintenance to deal with. And there simply is not enough money in Easthampton's budget to go 100% net zero, or even 20%. Also looking at some new treatments on roads that are more friendly to the environment with more efficient equipment to do that are just some examples.
I'd like to actually take a few seconds, maybe 30 seconds each, to come back on this, because Donald Tory's response was largely about HVAC systems, and he's talking about geothermal being one heat source, but it's basically electrification. And you've got a whole, fleet of municipal buildings that are primarily heated by combusting some fossil fuel. And so to go net zero, obviously you have to start by not combusting a fossil fuel. So are there some of the suggestions Donald Tory brought up that you think might fit in with this deferred maintenance, for instance, rather than repair an existing fossil fuel infrastructure, pay a little bit more to move off of fossil fuel entirely? So first to Nicola Chappelle, and then if Donald Tory wants to respond.
So we looked at geothermal for the new school, and between the Massachusetts School Building Association, the School Building Committee, it was determined not to be the best fit for the new school, but it certainly was looked at. We've been looking at geothermal also down at our wastewater treatment plant. A little concerned there with just the quality of that site and then adding geothermal to it. There are some concerns looking at mini splits. One, most of them are made in China. Also, it looks like their long-term lifespan is 7 to 8 years, and then they require significant upgrade and repair. So we're taking a prudent approach to what we're going to invest in and what parts can we of our HVAC system can we improve as we look for the best system to then switch over from the combustibles we use now.
Thank you.
Okay. And I just want to give Donald Tory 30 seconds to respond to that if he felt like it.
Yes, I do. I'm a big fan of mini splits. I don't know if the ones I have are made in China. I think they're made in Japan, which is an ally of ours, not an enemy. So if mini splits could be put in at the wastewater treatment, I'd be all in favor of that. Granted, it's only 7 to 8 years. I understand mine are good for 10 to 12, but that's what the contractor told me. But I am looking at put geothermal in. Now, it's going to cost me quite a bit of money, but the federal government is given 26% tax reduction if I go with geothermal, and then it's going to drop 23%. But I'm a big fan of it. It's probably going to cost me $40,000 to put my house into this because I have to do a whole new system. I've got steam radiators and an oil system, but it's an option. And one thing I'd like to add with the green building that we do, after these people pay extra money for 2x8 or 2x6 walls, the assessor goes out and charges them 5 to 10% more on their valuation because they have a sturdy building. I don't think that's proper.
That's time, but thank you very much. Okay, next question. What steps can the city take to support our residents in shifting their energy dependence to renewable resources? So this goes directly to that independent discussion we were just having. Do you support establishing a public utility for the provision of electric power, either through generation or aggregation of energy resources, in addition to providing broadband services for Easthampton residents? And Donald Tory gets this question first.
I kind of missed the question I was looking because
I'll re-ask it. So the first part is what are steps that you think the city can take to support residents in shifting towards renewable resources, such as the heating systems you've discussed? And do you support establishing a public utility for electric power, such as HG&E, Holyoke has, for example, either through direct generation or aggregation of energy resources, in addition to the broadband services for Easthampton residents?
Okay, well, this will go back to the green building that the city's mandating, and people are building houses and it's costing a lot more money to go with 2x6 or 2x8 walls. I don't know which one they're going with. And then they get assessed at a higher price. It's 5 to 10% more according to the assessor because they evaluate the buildings as better quality. I don't think that's right. I think they should be valued as the same as a 2x4 constructed building because they didn't do it on their own. They were obligated because of our green building codes. And I think that should change. That's it for now.
Okay. Nicola Chappelle, again, a bunch of things packed into this question, but I think the big part is about a public utility and how you value that.
Sure. The residents of Easthampton have already spoken on this subject with a non-binding ballot question on a municipal light plan that focused immediately on broadband. The city council then took 2 votes in 2 different fiscal years to have us go forward. Our municipal light plan organization documents are 90% complete, and we will have a provision in that agreement to also provide energy sources, giving the option to Easthampton for generation or aggregation. The Energy Advisory Committee the chair, Jamie Paquette, has already started to talk about aggregation as well. We'll be looking to, we started the accessibility and feasibility study around broadband. That's first and foremost. And then we'll go forward and looking at other utilities.
Great, thank you very much. And last, Eric Berzins, same question about helping residents shift towards energy independence onto renewable resources and establishing a public utility for electric power.
So talking about the broadband, I believe that major infrastructure projects have to be addressed with the citizens of Easthampton, because you have to understand, if everyone gets broadband on a municipal level, okay, we're all paying for it initially. Okay, so all I'm saying is let's bring it to a vote. We have, just because the mayor's vote is every 4 years, let's bring that vote. Let's come up with a solid plan, okay, and then bring it to the taxpayer. They can decide on it. It's not necessarily like, who am I to say that you should be forced to use charter or the municipal broadband? Okay, I really do believe that the people should have a say in what's going on. I do find it a little disingenuous when the mayor disrespects various government organizations on their recommendations. For example, on the Honeywell project, like they said that it was you could find cheaper and better alternatives. Why are we trusting a business to provide the best solution? It just seems a little. Businesses are in their. They're looking to profit, and I do believe that. I don't know. This forum's a little rough because I'd love to speak to you guys in person, but I guess
we're here now. But your time is just about up on that question. I do want to give Mayor LaChapelle a chance to respond. I think because some of what you said, she'd actually addressed in her question about how the citizens having been asked, but she's the expert on that particular thing.
Fair enough.
Yeah, the residents and voters of Easthampton actually took a vote on having a municipal light plan specifically around broadband, and they passed it overwhelmingly. And then the city council took an affirming vote of that voters vote, and then did so again in a subsequent fiscal year. That gave me direction as the executive of the city to pursue the directive of residents as well as the city council.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So we're now to the last question that was a pre-prepared question, and then we'll go to audience questions. So the next generation climate bill requires a municipal opt-in stretch energy code with a net zero buildings provision. Do you think Easthampton should opt into new stretch codes when they are developed? Do you otherwise support a net zero energy use target for new municipal buildings? And Nicola Chappelle, you get the first crack at this one.
Sure. I think that the opt-in stretch code, energy stretch code, is the way to go. In Easthampton, with the housing crisis that we have, I would take a very careful look at opting in immediately and see what we can do with housing development and using credits or incentives to work with the developer to do that. I haven't seen or weighed the difference between adopting a stretch code versus not and working with the developer. I certainly do not want to impede housing, and that would be my concern here. Otherwise, supporting a net zero energy use target, absolutely. I support the look that we've been taking at the city council level at ordinances, as well the work that the planning board has taken as they look through different applications.
Perfect. And then Eric Berzins, same question about a municipal opt-in stretch energy code with a net zero buildings provision. Should Easthampton opt in? And do you support a zero energy use target for new municipal buildings?
Obviously, I do. Okay, but I mean, that's one of the issues. I feel as though this entire thing is a slight distraction because you have to understand. I don't want to say I've been slandered in the media, okay, but you have to understand that I do want to address the questions that were brought up, and Nicole and Peter Davies are. I brought issues about both environmental and taxation problems to them, okay, but it's been skewed, okay, to make me look like a fool, which and it's super rough because it's tough when you have people in your council members like Dan Rist, Owen Zert, tell you that these are important issues that you're bringing to them, okay, but then after speaking to higher ups in government, okay, that they're no longer issues, okay, and I find that's the reason I'm here. I'm not here to necessarily be mayor, okay, I'm here to say and not necessarily expose, but say that there is a disconnect between how the people of Easthampton are being taxed, all right, and spending money. I'm not really that concerned about how the Easthampton government is spending money, but you have to understand that that certain people in Easthampton are not being taxed appropriately, and that is making other people more susceptible to it. I mean, they're taking your money, okay? And honestly, Nicole sort of manipulated the media, okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
Time's up, though. The time on that question is up. Yeah. Thanks, though. Okay, so now we have a chance to focus on audience questions.
Excuse me, I wasn't asked that question.
Oh, you are so right. I got distracted, and I sincerely apologize. You absolutely deserve the chance to answer that question. Do you want me to repeat it for you?
No, I'm good on this one.
Okay, I apologize.
I wouldn't opt into the stretch energy code. Number one, we just had an opportunity to opt into it at the new school, and we chose not to. So why even bother asking the question when you already opted out of it? Now, geothermal was going to cost an extra $2 million at the new school, approximately what the roundabout cost. So I don't know. I would have looked at a different alternative to that roundabout and gone with geothermal. I just don't see that. And as far as no solar on top of a brand new roof, that makes no sense. I mean, now they're talking about a new municipal building. This is probably the last municipal building, I'm sure is the last municipal building that's going to be built in my lifetime. I've paid for the rest of them over the years of being a citizen here and paying taxes. I don't see that. And I somehow missed out on I didn't pay attention enough. I missed out on the Cherry Street project. That's to receive some ARPA funds down the road. And part of the ARPA funds is to pay essential workers premiums for having worked through the pandemic, such as police, fire, Board of Public Works, and health workers. That would be one of the first things I would use ARPA funds for. And then it's supposed to pay back the CPA funds that we use for emergency rental. That would be the second thing I would use. And I would discontinue that emergency rental program. I would find a different program that could be administered by the assessor's office, maybe hire a half-time worker, not pay $60,000 for an outside concern. And it can be used for fixing handicap areas also. And it also is supposed to go for teachers to bring the students up to level that were behind on Zoom classes. And I would give them money. I don't know whether they brought the students up already or if there's a plan to bring them up with overtime for the teachers, but those are some of the things I would do also. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So this time I think I am right that we have time for audience questions. And so I think that each participant can choose to answer a question or not. So you're not obligated to answer every single question. If it interests you, if you have something to contribute, feel free to either raise your hand and then I'll call on you to do it. So the first question is, what resources do you use to determine your energy and climate-related positions? So where do you get your information? So Donald Tory.
I just look at dollars and cents. I had oil. I was burning a lot of oil, and mini splits eliminated that problem. I got rid of the window air conditioners and eliminated that problem. The government gave me a big refund for doing it. This was probably 6 years ago. I've had them cleaned once, and now I'm on an annual cleaning of these devices, which is $150 each, but it's going to extend the life of them. And I just think everybody has to make their own decisions, especially when it comes to their finances. And it made sense for me. And I'm way ahead of the game. And like I say, I'm looking at geothermal. All I can say for the other residents is they should look at that too. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Does anyone else want to discuss? Nicole, yes.
Yeah, I mean, to inform choices, looking at the Department of Energy resources on the state level, also research universities, UMass, Amherst has some really great resources around that, taking a look at energy tools and also payment of net zero options from what Germany has been doing, as well as other countries, taking a good look at and trying to follow blogs that are up on the US Gov site, but also at those research universities. There's the Mayor's Association on a national and a state level that looks on those issues all the time and gives some good advice, but also weighs out the cost benefit, where the marginal cost meets the marginal revenue for where your city and budget is.
Thank you. Eric Brisens, do you want to answer the question about what resources you use to determine your energy and climate-related positions?
Well, I can say as a small business owner, we've taken various steps in order to improve our energy efficiency. First of all, we've installed solar. We've installed special tanks in order to control the amount of wastewater we flush down the drain. We recycle our grain. But I want to take a step back. I rather than having the municipality spend a whole bunch of money, I think that we should give incentives to the individual homeowner, for example, for solar, rather than having these having money controlled by the government. Let's give a rebate to the individual homeowner so that they can maintain and collect on the savings, rather than having the municipality do the job. Because I mean, historically,
that's the current approach with rebates, both from state and federal governments for those kinds of things.
I think we should encourage it further. No?
Sure.
All right. Well, could we hear your stance, or is that not available?
I'm not running for a political office. I'm not sure anyone.
But you have to understand that a political office is not necessarily just based on your opinion. You may not. I, as an individual, if I were mayor, I do not know everything. So I need to talk to my constituents, and I need to talk to the board, the various members of various boards, in order to answer these questions. So I very much do respect, but you have to acknowledge I don't know everything. Okay, sure. I'm not here because I know everything. I just know that there is a disconnect between the assessors, the building inspector, and the way that people are taxed. So
Thank
you have to
you.
understand that, like,
Time
Your
is up
time is
on
up.
this
Thank you.
particular question. Yeah, thank you, Evan. We have the next audience question. This is a big, broad question. What do you see as the biggest issues facing Easthampton and the region right now? It's a very, very large question. Nicole, first.
Yeah, I would say we need to, Easthampton, but also the region is climate change, and specifically drinking water. It's not a sexy issue, but we've got some very serious issues going on with the aquifers in the area, not just the Barnes aquifer. And it's where most of Western Massachusetts and certainly Easthampton gets their water from the aquifer and those wells that are tapped. If we don't protect that supply, the medical issues and also just quality of life in the region suffers greatly. It's not a renewable resource. There's a limited amount of it, and we don't spend enough time and attention taking care of it and getting ready for what happens when we just have less water.
Okay, so water is the key issue. Donald Tory or Eric Berzins, do you want to contribute what you see as the biggest issues facing Easthampton and the region right now? Either one. Donald Tory. You're muted.
Several years ago, we put a new water plant in, and we went with chlorination instead of aeration. Just went with aeration, which shoots the water up into a tower and dissipates the bad elements in the water. Apparently, you don't need to chlorinate it. At that point, I was in favor of that. If we're going to build or do anything with our water system, perhaps we should look at doing aeration and eliminating the chlorine that's currently in some of our wells or in our tanks that they're using. Water is a big issue, and I think that's one of the steps that we should be looking at if we're going to do anything with our water supply. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And Eric, do you want to tackle the broadest of broad questions? What is the biggest issue facing Easthampton and the region right now? I think you're muted. Now you're unmuted. Are you answering the question just now? Because we can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I think that my experience during this political campaign has been awfully rough, and I gotta say that man, I'm at the point where I kind of want to back out because there was like, you have to understand when the local media freaking.
So, Mr. Berzins, I just want to, if you could at least frame your answer in.
No, I'm working. Yeah, I'm working on it. Okay. I'm sorry that I don't have your 30-second, all right, spiel on it. Okay. But you have to understand that there are a lot of issues, okay, that aren't just 30 seconds. Okay. There's 30,000 documents on me in the town of Easthampton. Okay. And the town only released less than 1%. Okay. And when you tell me that you have to
Easthampton and the region right now.
Yes, this is a huge issue. Okay. Because they're suppressing, okay, all right, knowledge and voice. Okay. 1% was issued to the media. Okay. And like there's a lack of information. We have like, fuck, man. I'm beaten down and I've kind of lost, and I accept that. I knew that I knew that I wouldn't win, okay? But I didn't necessarily know in what form that it would come in, okay? But you have to understand.
Thank you.
Fuck off.
Okay. So I want to take a brief break to ask Connie if she's been adding the chat questions to the document. Otherwise, I'll start pulling questions from the chat directly.
Yes, I am not doing it, but that we have been doing that. Yes.
Then
Have you used them all up?
I only see 3, and so I'm afraid that they're going into the wrong location somehow. I just want to make sure I'm not missing them.
Can you
So
join us?
I'll quickly move them over. They were put into another doc. I'll move them over now.
That would explain it. Well, in the meantime, I've got what I think is a pretty decent question. If you're elected or re-elected mayor, in 4 years, how do you hope people describe the city of Easthampton?
Okay. I would hope that they describe it just how you hear people describe it now, which is a little city with a big heart, the center of the universe, Whoville. I think that represents the resiliency that is found in Easthampton's history, but also the vigilance around that resiliency as we go forward and look to keep our city a place where there's a place for everyone. We need to change the definition, what is everyone, and how we can be more inclusionary. And I've taken some steps around that with economic development policies, as well as how government operates within City Hall. But I would say big, little city, big heart, and
Okay.
making that better.
Donald Tory?
Well, after 4 years, I hope they'll say Easthampton is affordable again. If I'm elected mayor, I'm going to run a very tight budget. I'm going to take care of the public employees because they need to be taken care of. And I'm not going to spend money foolishly. I'm not going to have programs that cost $60,000 to administer and only give out $56,000. That's just not fiscally sound. So at the end of 4 years, I'm hoping they say, gee, he made Easthampton affordable again. I don't go with all these government agencies that Nicole talks about. I don't even know about half of them. I just think that we can do this a lot by ourselves. There's a lot of great people in town. Growing up, we used to have a lot of volunteerism. I don't see any volunteerism as far as taking care of things. I mean, I would go out and personally rebuild a sidewalk if I was allowed to, but you're not even allowed to patch a pothole in front of your house because you might be liable for it. These are things that have to change. I mean, I go by a pothole every day and I could easily get a bag of coal patch and throw it out there in front of my house and fix it, but I'd be liable if something happened. But the city's not liable when I smash into it and my front end's out of whack. So I just think that at 4 years, it's going to be affordable again. Thank you.
Okay. So I've got an audience question directly for Mr. Tory. So first, they want a clarification. Are you suggesting that a nuclear power plant be built in Easthampton, or that that you just generally support nuclear power? That's probably a quick yes/no sort of question.
I don't think there's any room to build one in Easthampton, number one. And but I'm not opposed to nuclear power. It seems to work in a lot of places. I think we get about 25% of our energy from nuclear power. I'm also a big fan of water power. I've looked at small generation plants that you can put on the side of the river, and they're slightly below river level, and they've got one moving part. They're precast concrete, and you set them along the river, and it's a generation system. But I'm not opposed to nuclear. I mean, I know a lot of people go crazy on that one, but it's here. It's become safe, more safe than it's ever been. Thank you.
All right. Let's see, I have another, the audience questions for Don Tory seem to be coming in more. So here's one. I own a small business in Easthampton, and I need to purchase some materials from Asia because they're not available from US vendors, or they cost 10 times more domestically. What would you advise small business owners who employ local residents, but also rely on global suppliers in order to remain in business?
Well, number one, if you're a small business, you're going to do whatever you have to do. And I'm not opposed to you having to buy from Asia. I mean, there's other countries besides China. I don't know which items you're talking about. But we as a city shouldn't have to, because we're much bigger than a small business. I ran a small business for 40 years. I know what it takes. I know that, taking a second mortgage on your house to make payroll, it's very difficult to run a small business. And whatever you have to do in a small business, you have to do. As a city, I think we should look at things more carefully, like this Honeywell project. Are they Chinese solar panels, or are they American made? Or even if they come from Japan or someplace, any place but China or India. India is another major polluter. They're adding more CO2 gases than the rest of the world, the two countries combined. If we're going to fight them, we got to fight them, and we got to start the fight here. Thank you.
Okay. So I think as a policy, any question asked of a particular candidate should be open after that candidate to any of the other candidates. So do Eric or Nicole, do either of you want to answer that question about the global supply?
I mean, I'll chime in here. It's a global economy. To say you're buying something that's made in America, I would check carefully. Ford cars have parts from all over the world. I think what it really comes down to is we need to make sure our small and micro businesses have what they need as far as resources at the most accessible cost for them. If we start losing small businesses, then we're going to lose that resiliency that I just spoke about.
Eric, do you want to take that question? And if not, I have a specific question for you from the audience.
I'll take the specific question.
Okay, so the question was, have you read the Municipal Broadband Committee report, which recommended funding municipal fiber via revenue bonds? And do you think that would be a fair method for taxpayers?
No, I have not read that, because you have to understand, when you start, like, let's just say you start a small business, okay, you don't know what hurdles you're going to have to tackle. Okay, so the fact that you threw this question on my desk, okay, without any sort of documentation, I don't know how to answer it. Okay, and many people online, there's a huge group of people that say that I'm unqualified for this, but you have to understand that nowhere in my DNA does it say I have the qualifications to be a brewer or run a brewery. So you got to take it as you go. And, in the end, I don't want to brag, I don't want to boast, but I do have principles. My first principle is to my consumer. Okay. They are the most important. Okay. And the second is to my employee. Okay, because they're the ones who cater to the consumer. Okay, and third is to my investor. Okay, and my investor they get pissed off at the fact that I do not cater to them first. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but you have to understand that there's a hierarchy, and I would. I feel as though I've sort of already messed it up, but the hierarchy, if I were to bring it to the city of Easthampton, would be citizen first, government employee second, and I don't know. Unfortunately, citizen and taxpayer, an investor, but I've got no influence. But you have to understand, I'm not no one's paid me money in order to have influence in this town. And see you.
Time's up on that one. So we've got another question that was not added to the list, but I think is worthwhile and it related to the environment, which is the topic of this forum. It's about biodiversity and water quality issues. Does the city have a no pesticides policy for city parks and other properties? Should we? And what about a no fertilizer policy? And so that's one question. And this same person also has a follow-up, but I think I'll leave it at that part first. And anyone can, Donald Tory.
Well, I don't know if we have a no pesticide policy or not, but if you take a ride by Daly Field and look at the city-owned Daly Field, it's terrible. And you look over at Williston, it's as green as can be. Now, I don't know if they have a fertilizer policy, but I believe they have a water policy where they water, and we obviously don't. As far as pesticides, I don't know what they're putting on the grass. I mean, nitrogen will make grass grow like crazy. It's not going to hurt anything. But I don't know what's in the pesticides, but I certainly think that's a good question. And it should be looked at by maybe somebody from the water department who has knowledge of chemicals. I would think they would have knowledge of chemicals. Thank you.
And Mayor LaChapelle?
Yes, so we have actually around pesticides, we work with the Board of Health, and they look at our health director around pesticides used, what shouldn't be used, what are alternatives. That includes the mosquito spraying from the state. We don't often fall into that category, but if we did, then we would consult our health director and the Board of Health around that use. As far as fertilizers, we are transitioning away from fertilizing and buying equipment that allows us to properly aerate the fields and use more friendly products for not only the fields, but the water. Nonotuck Park in particular is surrounded by water and wetlands, and we want to be very careful and thoughtful about what we're doing to keep the park in the best shape it can be.
Great. And Eric Brisens, do you want to answer that question about whether the city should have a pesticide and fertilizer policy? But you're muted, I think. You're still muted.
Sorry. I apologize. I thought that there was a 10-minute interval. I went downstairs to take a piss. But I do not have any opinion on fertilizer. All I know is that certain properties have not undergone proper building permits. And I do believe that that's a more important issue than fertilizer. So I respectfully, I take my time. You can take my time.
Sure, that's fine. So there's actually a follow-up from this same audience member. All trees and shrubs planted by the city should be native flowering species to support pollinators. Agree or disagree? This could be a quick round.
Agree.
Donald Tory?
I agree also. We need to keep the bees and
Talk to me.
a tree.
Talk to me.
Wait, are you still
on? He may come back to this. It's a short question. So I am looking for new questions added by our team who are scanning the chat, and I'm not seeing any. I have some questions that are far afield from climate, and I can ask those if people want that, but we are also close to time.
Oh, you talking to me?
Actually, I'm asking perhaps Connie or Steve.
I think if there are other questions, since we have the time, let's ask them.
Okay. From another audience member, with Easthampton expanding housing and attracting new businesses, our library is now woefully inadequate on so many levels and small and poorly accessible to people with disability. Do the candidates envision upgrading this valuable resource? And could go to whoever chooses to answer it first.
Sure, I'll respond to that. Yes, it's a very valuable resource, again, sorely underfunded. The city gives exactly the minimal amount to the library, but it's used by all the residents of the city, including those who don't have strong access to internet and other tools to access literature or research. The new president of the library, Elizabeth Applequist, as well as a brand new director, I look forward to sitting down with them, taking a look at the structure of the library, which is not a city department, and what we can do going forward to stabilize their budget, but also take a good look at the building and what we can do to keep it at least usable while we look for another alternative.
Donald, Tory?
From what I understand, they did some minor repairs on the handicap ramp going in. That's going to have to be replaced. As far as looking for another location, I'm not in favor of that. As far as adding on to the building, there is some land there. They could put an addition onto it. And like Nicole said, it's not a city property. It's I believe it's privately owned, and I don't want to see it move from the center of town. It's a vital resource and it needs to be in. Hopefully, and I don't know about the new elementary and middle school, that'll have a library a fair amount, and students will be able to get books there as well. But I'm definitely in favor of the supporting the library. And there's such a thing as fundraisers. I'm not about taking every dollar from the city for every cause. And I'm sure if we had a fundraiser for the library, there'd be plenty of people turning out. Just as years ago when we needed an ambulance, I think they collected the money for an ambulance in 3 days because people needed, and they'll pay for it. Thank you.
Mr. Brissens, any thoughts on the library and upgrading it?
The only saving grace that we have is our youth. Okay, you have to, I mean, we built a $68 million school. Turn that off. We have to embrace it. We spent millions of dollars in order to build this thing, and we have the ability to attract people or students from other counties in order to minimize our expenditures on this asset. And it's almost embarrassing to hear that when we had the old schools, that there was a workshop that was vacant. We have an asset. Let's market ourselves to bring students to Easthampton. I give away the rest of my time.
I actually have an audience question that's directed to Nicole, but obviously once she's answered it, others can take it on. So what plans are in place to replace ancient infrastructure like water pipes with lead, et cetera? And how does that get funded?
So there are a variety of funding sources. A really big one has been the Community Block Development Grant for infrastructure that the city has participated in for years. It's focused on the poorer communities, those with disenfranchised from typical services, might be struggling with a disability, or just the age of their home is very run down and is apt to have poor and unsafe water and sewer connections. We've also applied for a transportation improvement project on Union Street, which will allow us to replace the sewer and the water pipes there, while the state and federal government pays for the redoing of the road, sidewalks, entrances to buildings, as well as crosswalks and curb cuts. We've also, the municipal vulnerability grant we just received for $2 million will allow us to redo the sewer pipes in that area, which flood quite often, dumping as wastewater into our conservation area at the end of Cherry Street. That grant really is a cutting edge grant that will pave the way for us forward by combining permaculture solutions as far as plants, as well as outfalls using natural materials rather than concrete.
I've got a quick follow-up before I just a detail question, which is, so you've got a grant to deal with this issue in the street way, the public way, but often the lead pipes are the connection to the house itself. And so is that included in this project, or is that not included?
It's not necessarily included. It depends on the property. What I've seen in other communities is some financing or share the cost to replace those pipes. We certainly have a lot of old housing. I'm sitting in my house that was built in the 1800s. And to take a look at that, we need to take care of our streets first. Unfortunately, that's the position we're in. And then literally from the middle of the street, move out into the houses.
And Donald, Tory, yes.
Well, I just checked on the Cherry Street project, and the homeowners are responsible from the hookup on the street to their house. And as far as I could find out on this $2 million grant, there's no money there available for those people if they have bad sewer and water connections. It's several $1,000s for them to hook up. And I think they all should be warned that this could be a possibility. Nobody knows what's under the ground and how old those houses are. If the main sewer line's made out of clay, and that's the reason that particular street was picked for this project, it was like the worst in the city. And, I don't think there's any money available. The art funds are not going to be available for that. That's privately owned property. So it's just a heads up for them. I mean, they may not have any issues. And I don't know about lead pipes. Are lead pipes the same as galvanized pipes? I don't think so. I don't think there's any lead pipes in this city. I think galvanized is, unless the Board of Public Works can tell me where there's lead pipes that are water pipes. I don't think there are any. I think the oldest pipes are galvanized. They've all been upgraded. I know my house is 100 and something years old, and I recently had all new copper pipes put in, and now you can have plastic. So, but the connections at the street are going to be the responsibility of the homeowner. Thank you.
Eric Berzins, do you want to address the issue of replacing ancient infrastructure and water pipes, including possibly lead service lines? You're still muted.
All right, back in action. I don't, because truthfully, the issues that I've brought to your question are issues in the assessors and the building department, the ones that bring Easthampton tax money. I don't know necessarily how to spend it when you ask me questions on the fly in 30 seconds. All I know is that there are issues on how we collect money. Okay. And honestly, I kind of feel like this debate has been sort of unfair. But that being said, go ahead and take away my time.
I think that actually works out well in that I think we're supposed to end at 7:50. So I guess with that, I'll thank the candidates for their time and for their attention. and hand it over to Steve Linsky.
Hi, thank you very much, Ben, and thank you to all the candidates. When you do a forum like this, there are other questions and people have chatted them. So I think it would be useful if you could provide us with how people can reach you with additional questions, the best way to put a contact information. And if you want to either pass that along to us and we can pass along to others, or you can put it in the chat yourself, we will get those. So for those folks who participated and didn't have their question asked, our apologies. We hope you, of course, you're going to stay with us because we're going to be transitioning to the City Council at-large candidates very shortly, beginning at 8 o'clock. So, but we do want to make sure that those other questions, as they related to other issues, get communicated to the candidates. So we for all those people ask questions, we will guarantee that we will get those questions to the candidates and try to get back to you in a way to connect. So I see, I'm going to read it out loud because both Don and Nicole have responded. If you want to direct your questions directly to Don, it's Donald.Tory, Donald.Tory, Torrey, at yahoo.com. For Nicole, it's Nicole@NicoleLaChapelle.com. Eric, I don't know if you want to put in or just come on and tell us how people can reach you with these questions. That would be great. But thank you, everyone, and we will be proceeding shortly with the city council candidates. Thank you to all the mayoral candidates, and don't forget, you can early voting is underway right now, so you can go, you can vote, you can drop your ballot off at City Hall. It will be open tomorrow, and of course on Tuesday there will be the rest of the election held, and that's right, and we're all going to one place now, which is Easthampton High School. All precincts will now vote at Easthampton High School. So we hope to see you. It's exciting. This is the first time that our mayor's term is going to be 4 years. So that's important. And the first time we will be employing ranked choice voting in our mayoral election. So that is important too. So thanks again to the candidates, and thanks for all the folks who tuned in. And in a few minutes, we'll be